Ladies and gents, thanks for joining us and welcome back to Astroscreen and Engineers. I'm absolutely buzzing for this one. This is a mission-driven company who are doing something that is extremely prevalent in today's day and age. So Astroscreen have actually created, in effect, what's an early warning system for misinformation on social media using machine learning. So we've got Juan here, who's one of the co-founders, who is going to run us through Astroscreen, what they're doing, what they're building, and how the platform actually works and some of the details. So Juan, we're here. We've done 20 minutes pre this conversation anyway, so we're fueled. We're ready to rock. But do you want to give us an intro and say hello to everyone?
Certainly. Hi, everyone. We at Astroscreen are building an early warning system for misinformation. We're using state-of-the-art machine learning models to detect this misinformation, to warn companies before this spreads. We've actually developed 3 products, which we will discuss through this podcast. The first one is this misinformation early warning system that is for companies. The second is something called Moderate, which we built to prevent abuse and harassment in social media with specifics on Twitter. And finally, we've developed Vaccinate, which uses, again, state-of-the-art machine learning models to detect anti-vaccine or vaccine hesitancy and to allow companies to reach these people who might be on the fence of vaccination and to allow us to prevent a little bit of this big problem that we're facing as a society.
We'll get to those 3 parts. For a moment, let's roll back and dive into some of what we were chatting about. What's your view, Astroscreen's view on what's been going on social media over the last couple of years?
I think social media is becoming less and less enjoyable for everyone involved. People are online all the time, but they are not happy about it. There's no more, social media is just so much different from what it was. There's misinformation everywhere. There's hatred and abuse, and it's just a minefield for everyone involved, especially for the people creating the content, which we all enjoy. We believe that the unfortunate truth is that moderation falls on the hands of the user. So all of this is going to be difficult for social media companies to address themselves, which is why we're trying to build these things. As for misinformation, what we do is we consume a large amount of Twitter data, and we have many different models. Some of them are like natural language processing. Some of them are less traditional machine learning. So we built something called the shared actions early warning system, which is if you find a group of users that are doing the same thing, regardless of what that thing is, if this group of users is large enough, you will definitely find some coordination and some inauthentic activity there.
Okay. Talk to us a little bit about that point that you made about social media companies and the accountability starts with the users. Why do you think it hasn't been done so far, or from your knowledge or the team's knowledge so far?
So I would say that the main issue is that this goes against social media's bottom line, which is active users, right? So imagine you are just someone who has a lot of hate to give.
Yeah, okay.
The only consequences that you're going to face, the worst thing that can happen is someone's going to delete your account.
Yeah.
And you just create another one. You can just create another email, create another account. There's thousands of names that you can use.
Yeah.
And because creating these accounts is so easy, the consequence for being horrible online are basically none.
Yeah.
This begs the question, so then who is going to police, who is going to protect the people who are online, who are creating content? And it's not famous people cannot afford to just create a new account because, they have follower bases, they have
Yeah.
teams behind it. It's not like you can just go like, oh, I just create a new account and no one will bother me. But it's part of your job to be famous, be interesting. Like as a journalist, it's part of your job to communicate. As a sports person, it's part of your job to be a role model.
Yeah.
And then what happens is they're just the target of all of this harassment from everyone who is, for any reason, right? Like they don't even have to disagree fundamentally with anything they say. They just want to say horrible things to them, which comes to the unfortunate truth that moderating this behavior is on the user that is receiving this hatred and this harassment, which is a very unfortunate truth. So we at Moderate, we built something to help them do that. Basically, if you are a famous person, you can just log in moderateapp.com. We'll scan all of your mentions on Twitter, and we'll suggest a whole bunch of people that you can just block. And it's easy, it's seamless, it takes a few moments, and it just happens. It's good.
Okay. To take us back to, you mentioned a couple of points. At first, building the early warning system. Yourself
Right.
and Ali, you're thinking about Astroscreen, and there's a couple of different ways that you can do this with shared actions. You mentioned NLP. How do you actually look to address that problem? As in, can you help us understand that really early stage part of actually building the early warning system and what that looked like?
Sure. So at first, it was basically, well, I guess these days everything's a dashboard, right?
Yeah.
So what we created is a dashboard. It works by we allow the user to create a topic.
Yeah.
With that topic, we start consuming tweets matching like a query or maybe matching a few people. It's just like a very basic filter for Twitter. We consume all of the tweets that match that, and then we analyze them with different machine learning models and with different algorithms that are not necessarily machine learning, like the shared actions one that I just mentioned. And then, so these models will have like a threshold,
Okay.
which go, well, if this happens, you create an alert, and then an analyst, like a human person, can go and look at that, and they have basically what an alert is a group of users that are suspicious, and they can then run like a whole battery of tests against those users and go, well, maybe it's just people who like tennis a lot. It's fair. We don't get it right every time.
Yeah.
But and the bots and inauthentic behavior are relatively easy to target when they are together. If you see a single bot, you'll go like, well, it's just a person tweeting. If you see 100 of them that tweet the exact same thing at the exact same time, you're like, well, the chances of that are unlikely, which is what we exploit. The thing that automatized accounts have to exploit is that they cannot have a human on the other side. And even if they have a human, like that, there are like I don't exactly know how to call them, people farms, like a bunch of people tweeting about like a topic and pushing a narrative and whatever.
Yeah.
They will be organized somehow. It's if you look at them together and just run very basic, even plotting, you will see that they have like very coordinated behavior.
Wow. Does that actually exist? People farms?
I really don't want that term to be coined. But like there's there's a lot of talks about like Russia having like an amount of people in like what you would call an office, and then they're just tweeting about something, but they have like an agenda, right? Like a literal agenda, not an ideological one, just like an agenda. Like you have to tweet about this. You have to. They get like the text, they get the topics, they get everything they need to do. But they're actual people with actual accounts in a computer. There's no bots, no automatization, no anything. And then maybe each of them will control 5, 10, 20 accounts. So you can, with a few people, you can still create a
Can create
very
a lot of
good
noise.
amount of volume. Yes.
I'm thinking about Twitter. You can create quite a lot of noise if you then actually start searching maybe a couple of keywords in what people are actually trying to push. You can easily get involved in the conversation.
Yes. That's
That's
true.
scary.
And it's until you actually consume a reasonable volume of this, which as a regular user you probably won't.
Yeah.
You can't really tell just how big it is. Like we have like a demo, right, for Bill Gates, where we just consume mentions of Bill Gates.
Yeah.
And it's just incredible what some of these people are saying, and at what volume. It's just so much. It's insane. Obviously, like me as a user, right? I use Twitter mostly as a consumer, right? I don't produce a lot
Yeah.
of content. But I don't see that in my timeline. I don't see that in my websites. I am not exposed to that, but it's still there, and many people are exposed to that. It's like you kind of the moment you step like 5 centimeters out of your follower base and your friends and so on, it just goes downhill very, very fast.
Yeah, the what really stood out for me was Social Dilemma on Netflix
Right.
and how polarized
It's
people can be by their timeline. Your timeline is essentially who you're following and the news that you'll consume, and that can be a very different world to the person next to you with the same internet access, following
yeah.
very different people because of the algorithms that or the models that I guess sit underneath Twitter, Instagram,
So they
whatever else. That was really scary how that was explained to me. I was literally none the wiser before. I didn't realize.
Yep. Yes, exactly. And it's and a large percentage of the users will never realize that, right? This takes like the you need to pay attention. You need someone to explain to you that everything you've read it is tracked, and that informs what you get fed. So everything you do, you just get more of that, which is what that's basically machine learning, right? It's like anything that machine learning is very good at predicting everything that is already happening. Well, let me just have a little anecdote here. When the social dilemma came out, we received so many
Yeah.
applications for our engineering roles. We've never seen that many CVs of like really well qualified people. So that
Did
helped a
you?
lot with recruitment, because everyone like it was it was in everyone's mind, and then we were doing the opposite thing. It was a lot of fun. We actually
Yeah.
watched the social dilemma like a couple of days after it came out at the office. We had like a meeting, we all watched it, we had like a round table. It was very good.
I can so see you there sitting opposite
Yeah.
that screen like, I told you. I
It's
told
just like,
you.
I've been telling this
See?
for years. Yeah, I think like the well, I mean, the main problem is that you don't notice, right? As a user, you don't
Yeah.
see that that you're being fed what you already like.
Yeah.
And the other thing is that it's not even what you like, it's what grabs your attention.
Mm.
And what grabs your attention gets polarized more and more and more, because it grabs your attention, right? Like polarizing content
Yeah.
grabs your attention, and then you get fed more of that content because you paid attention to it. And that's how you get splits, where people lose the center, right?
Yeah.
And you have like the left and the right and tops and bottoms, and everything's much more difficult, because the less middle ground there is, the more unhappy everyone is later.
Yeah.
You need
I
the
don't
middle
know.
ground.
Yeah, I don't know if you want to be conservative about your answer here. That's completely fine. Um, but why do you think social media companies haven't put the accountability back on the users just yet. Everyone's crying out for photo identity attached to every single user or some form of it when signing up, as an example. Why don't you think something like that, a verification or authorization process, has happened? Remember, in your opinion, why don't you think it has
Right.
happened?
So
Or conservatively?
I think it's difficult for social media companies to tread the balance between ease of use and profitability and accountability. Right? It's just so difficult. Imagine like right now with we have like the perfect example with masks. Right? People don't like to be forced. People don't like to be followed. There was like such an outrage when the social dilemma came out, and people were understandably upset that they
Yep.
had been tracked and that that everyone has their information. It's so difficult. Now imagine if you actually ask them for photo ID.
Okay.
Then you also have like the edge cases, but in this case, edge cases are very very difficult. Can you imagine like whistleblowers, journalists, people who need to remain anonymous?
Mm.
How are you going to address that? Right?
Yep. Okay.
That's difficult. I mean, I don't envy social media companies' decisions. It's a place where there's no good decisions. I think it's
Yeah.
difficult. You're going to lose somehow, and obviously because there are no like easy choices to go. Oh, clearly this is what we should do. Right? There's no such thing in
Mm.
this current ambience. So what happens is we're just going to keep on doing what we're doing because we're still making money and we don't want to mess with that.
Share price is at X. We don't want to see what it looks like at
Yeah.
Y. Let's
Yeah.
not take the risk.
Exactly.
I don't think it's working. What's working, let's just say, is working. We're making money, but I think what stood out for me was, the Football World Cup example. Where you and I got back in touch together a couple of days after, where I think things were going crazy for you as well. That's what really stood out to me as shit. This probably needs to change a lot.
Yep, it's very difficult. Right? Everyone who is angry has a direct line of contact with the person they're angry at, and
Yeah.
zero accountability. So,
Yeah.
as I said,
Spot
the
on.
unfortunate truth, and I really like to emphasize the unfortunate bit, is that the onus isn't the person who is receiving the abuse.
Yeah.
They need to do something to receive less of it.
Yeah.
We think this is one of the things that they can do, right? Besides, like, you can always like just turn off the comments and just don't read your replies, but then you're off social media. You're just sending content there, and
You lose that connection.
yeah.
That's sad
So,
because there's a ton of good stuff as well.
yeah, exactly.
Let's just understand your business model, because you've gone from a bot classification model at the
Right.
start. You realized actually there's a lot more to it, and you went full
Yes.
analysis on misinformation. Help us understand that change, whether it was technically, whether it was business minded, but help us understand that.
Astroscreen was formed when I was doing research at Telefónica in Barcelona. For my PhD, I was publishing my last paper. And then me and Ali got together and I was like, well, I have a classifier for bots and I have also some analysis on why the previous ones weren't working properly. He's like, oh, that's super cool. We should discuss it. I think we can make a business out of that. He's like the business person and I'm the technical guy. And then we started talking about it. We started talking to investors. And at some point, before we actually got investment, he was like, you know what, we can either have this as like an API, where you send a Twitter user ID and we tell you if it's a bot,
Yeah.
which was fair. But that would just leave us as the middle guy of companies that would be much more successful, right?
Yeah.
So we decided to just go to the next level,
Yeah.
and then we built the dashboard and we built the analysis tools and we built everything.
Yeah.
And we built this company that uses both artificial intelligence and analysts and people to tell companies that go, well, we think that this narrative, which is fake, is going to affect you.
Okay.
We think this narrative about your company is, so that's like the path we took. After that, we realized that it's very difficult to convince companies that these narratives affect their bottom line, even though we still believe that. So we decided to build, well, who's the next person? Who's the next entity that's being affected by social media problem behaviors? And it's just users, right? Like users are getting harassment, users are getting death threats, and so on.
Help us understand, but I do want to talk about the complexity around some of what you're building technically. Okay.
That's
not
good.
not just yet. Don't reveal your secrets either. But help us understand moderate and vaccinate and where they actually fit into this spectrum as well.
So while we were building the disinformation, we built a whole bunch of tools that consume Twitter data or social media data and tell you things about it. In this case, the things where we believe that this is inauthentic behavior, but we also have a classifier for like toxic comments.
Yeah.
Or bots. We have a classifier for anonymous users.
Yeah.
And we're like, well, we already have all these things built.
Yeah.
Who can use them, right?
Yeah.
Besides, big companies, which it's a hard sell for big companies.
Yeah.
Because it's also an expensive thing to run and to they're actually complex machine learning models. So running them and consuming them, everything takes resources, so it's an expensive product. Who can use them too? We're like, well, people can use them. People get insults, people get horrible treatment, people suffer in social media because they are famous, or they create the content that we all enjoy. These are the people that suffer the most on social media because they are the target of the most people. So we thought, well, we can. I'm sure there's like journalists and sports people and CEOs, like basically anyone who is like a very active and followed social media users is probably getting this horrible content thrown at them by people voluntarily, right? So we decided to take some of those models out of Astroscreen and put them in moderate. So now what moderate does is we have a racism classifier. So if someone spews horrible racist things at you, you can just quickly go through all of them and block them quickly. We have a sexism classifier because Gamergate and all of these things that happened, which were very sexist.
Yeah.
We have just general insults. We have so when we moved the toxicity classifier, we realized that it wasn't the best because it would be very sensitive to any amount of swearing.
Yeah.
So we improved that classifier so that casual swearing, which is very common anywhere in social media, would not be classified as toxic. You have to be very insulting to get over our toxicity classifier. Now we have we connected our bot classifier to that because people get mentioned by bots, and then you might want just to block them.
Yeah.
Or to like at least hide the replies so that people who consume your content don't have to receive that horrible content that is being thrown at you just because you're famous.
Yeah, okay. And Vaccinate follows down the same route, but obviously COVID times at the moment and
Exactly.
inflammatory behavior around vaccinations.
So Vaccinate is how can we help? We actually joined like a hackathon,
Okay.
which gave birth to Vaccinate. We're like, well, what are we good at doing? And we're good at creating NLP models with Twitter data. We churn it through Mechanical Turk. We classify it. We tinker with it, and we create really good natural language processing models. And then we're good at like consuming this data and parsing it and slicing it and putting them in very convincing dashboards and narratives and so on that explain what is happening. Right.
Yeah.
This is what we did at Astroscreen, and then what we did at Moderate. So how can we? This was a hackathon for to address vaccine hesitancy. So we're like, well, if we could find like what's the first step that you need to take to address the vaccination problem, which is that people aren't getting vaccinated enough.
Yeah.
As well, you need to find them.
Yeah.
that's, before you can do anything about this, you need to know who they are. You need to have a way to talk to them. So we created this classifier. We ran it through Mechanical Turk and so on.
Yeah.
Now we have a classifier that's able to tell if a tweet in particular, because natural language processing algorithms are very sensitive to jargon. So we trained it on Twitter data. We use it on Twitter, and it's able to tell if a tweet is pro-vaccine, anti-vaccine, and we're working on a vaccine hesitancy because we feel or we think that because of the polarization that we've seen elsewhere, you can't convince people who are pro-vaccine to come anti, and you can't convince people who are anti to go pro. Those beliefs are set.
Okay.
But what the people that you need to reach is everyone on the fence. Everyone who is in the middle, you need to go like, well, the convincible people.
Yep.
So we're trying to build like a classifier that will detect people who have valid concerns, right? Like I'm pregnant, can I take the vaccine? That's not someone who doesn't want to get vaccinated. That's just someone who's scared and who might not have enough information to answer that question, which is very particular of their situation.
Yeah. Okay.
So that's what we're building like right now. And what we do is we are able to give were you to run a Twitter campaign, we can tell you who are people who are against vaccination in different states so that you can display an ad to them. And Twitter just allows you to put a few thousand user IDs, which you can then target some advertising to. So that's what we're doing.
Nice. Okay. How complex is it to actually build some of these classifiers and some of these models, because they're probably scanning tweets at lightning speed. Obviously, you've helped train them around inflammatory behavior, wording, jargon, etc.
Yep.
And you can tweak them up on the toxicity part. So there's quite a lot of facets to some of these models. Tell me about the complexity. Just take your time in simple terms.
So basically, I think the main issue so we use Google Bert, which is, well, it was state of the art last year. But let's say it's still state of the art. We use Google Bert, and the main problem we face is that Bert's too good.
Okay.
So it will, when you build a machine learning classifier, what happens is you have like metrics like accuracy, precision, recall, and the area under the curve, which is what the algorithm's optimizing for. And all of this, regardless of what you throw at it, will be great.
Okay.
So then the real problem we have, and we've built solutions to address that, is we test really thoroughly.
Okay.
because like the toxicity one. So for example, we trained the toxicity one on a data set that wasn't tweets.
Okay.
So then when we put it on Twitter and someone says like any curse word, even words that are not considered obscene, like crazy
Yep.
or liar, it
Yep.
just goes full toxicity. I'm like, well, no, but finding that needs a person. You can't.
Yep.
You need a person. So what we do is we read a lot of these tweets. We actually classify, like we manually annotate many of them. Besides like what we do in Target, which we get volume from, we actually manually, many of our engineers, and every time it's like, I feel like there's a bias for this word, for this phrase, and information comes out of that, right? Like insights of
Yep.
what the classifier is doing wrong. So we train a new classifier. We've probably trained thousands of classifiers because every time we find one of these things, we just update. We update the data, we relabel some of it, and then we train a new classifier until that bias is gone.
Wow. Okay.
That's kind of the complexity of it.
And just moving aside scanning tweets, is that generally quite a similar practice in most machine learning or research environments? Removing bias, lots of testing.
I would say people who are very serious about these models will do these kind of things.
Okay.
We call it bootstrapping because we take the results of the classifier and then label them manually so that the classifier can learn from its mistakes. But this is very expensive and time consuming.
Okay.
So if you get like a Lone Ranger developer who has like machine learning skills, what they will do is they'll take a data and they'll just do I don't want to say the bare minimum because that's what you get taught in school, right? Like I did a master's in machine learning and that's what you get. You're like, well, you take this amount of data and then you save a little bit for testing and you save a little bit for validation and you save a little bit for optimization. And then once it's like at a reasonable accuracy and it's kind of, it works throughout your whole data set, including these sections that you purposefully didn't show the classifier. So this is like if it was new data.
Yep.
Then it's done. And it's just never done. What happens is language changes, right? Like what's an insult now wasn't an insult a year ago.
Wow. Okay.
So that's like it drifts. Like there's many things that people can say to you now that are considered offensive and an insult that weren't an insult last year.
Yeah.
So that changes. And the other thing is all of these little biases, because to do this perfectly, you would need an insane amount of labeled data.
Okay.
So to do this just like the regular machine learning way, which is just what I just explained, you need like millions and millions of labeled data. And obviously, as like small startups or Lone Ranger developers, you don't get access. You don't have access to that.
Okay. And just educate me and some of the people listening. I'm not going to call it a machine learning engineer. Dare I say that for some people listening, but when engineering in a machine learning capacity, what springs to mind being one of the most important factors for you or that you think about?
The main factor that I would say is problematic is that you can make an algorithm better by throwing money at it. You have data, right? Like you have 100,000 data points.
Yeah.
You can make it better by getting another 100,000 data points, which will cost you, an amount of money. You can make it better by putting it in you can make it faster. For example, we did that. We needed to get a faster response from the algorithm. So we just increased the GPU. You're like, well, now we're going to use 5 GPUs or 10 GPUs or like a Titan Pro, whatever. And then at some point you have to go, well, is it worth it to spend an extra £1,000 on this a month, right?
Yeah.
Is it worth it? Like, how much you get diminishing returns? It's like, how much more do I need? And that will depend on what you are doing.
Yeah.
I have this cool story from a friend who, for his thesis, he built this improvement on an algorithm which made it, I don't know, like 1% better in accuracy, which is very, very small.
Yeah.
But it also made it like 100 times more expensive to run. And it was crazy, right? And he was very sad. He was very sad, and he went to his supervisor. He's like, this is worthless. How, like, who is going to need, who is going to pay 100 times more to run an algorithm that is 1%? And he said, if you're drilling for oil.
Okay.
If you're doing anything that is incredibly expensive, you're willing to pay 100 times more for 1% extra.
Yeah.
Which is fair.
Yeah, that is fair. I thought you were going to say maybe somewhere in the 90 percentile return on investment then, at that real high end where might be 100 times more expensive, but the return on investment is going to be, I don't know,
it's either something that is very expensive. Like, if you have to test, if every test is very expensive, then you can have that extra cost.
Yeah.
Because testing is super expensive, right? Like, lunar landers. Like, if you were to have an algorithm that analyzes whether a lunar lander is going to crash, you would pay 100 times more for that 1%.
Yeah, true.
So
true.
navigating that as a company is very difficult, because, like, we read a lot of tweets. No surprise there. And we see you immediately see, like, you're like, oh, like this one not quite as toxic, not quite as racist. Maybe there is some sarcasm. Maybe you're like, well,
Yeah.
And then to remove that bias, it's not like you can just label that tweet and call it a day. It's a whole new process of training a new classifier and doing the bootstrapping and everything. Well, is it worth it? And many times it is, and many times it isn't. So making those choices is difficult.
Okay. That's an interesting concept. Just help us understand, lastly, so technical environment, Google Bert is obviously a big use. I know that you've used AWS in the past, some services and components. Just paint that picture of what that technical capacity would look like down at Astroscreen, and maybe why you use some things.
So we use something tried and tested, right? Like, or at least for our immediate backend, like not our machine learning, but like our regular backend, we use Django.
Yeah.
Django is tried and tested. It takes you out of a lot of trouble. It's gotten big and a little clunky, but it's nice and it's fast, and you can just do a lot with it. And everyone knows how well. I mean, not everyone, but it's a big tool that people know how to use. For our front end, we use React mostly.
Yeah.
And if we're building something that's just like fast, we'll just use like regular Bootstrap or whatever, just to put it on Django, and then we can make it pretty, and we can make it responsive, and we can make it nice with React.
Yeah.
And then we just take the Django bit and just you flip a few switches, and then it's an API. So then React just connects. It's nice, right? It's a good development pipeline. Because I'm not sure this is the best way to do it, but because of how we've evolved from Astroscreen, Moderate, and Vaccinate, and we've reused a lot of our services, what we do for AI is we put things on Amazon SageMaker.
Yeah.
Then Amazon SageMaker allows you to very easily deploy an API Like it takes a few clicks. You can update it. You can store models. You can change them in like a couple of commands or a couple of clicks.
Nice.
And you can train them there. So what we do for training is we'll have our machine learning engineer, just to use the term, work on a notebook, and we just spin out an instance which is super powerful, right? Like,
Yeah.
but you need it for maybe an hour or maybe 5-6 hours, and then the model is created, and then you turn it off, and you only pay for what you use.
Yeah.
And then it's easy. It's expensive if you like it comes at a premium, right? Which is why the AWS is a great business. But it's worth it in development time, in ease of use, and then you can just take that model and you put it on an API through SageMaker itself, and you can just say like, oh well, maybe like how much am I going to use it? Or let's say you have like a big batch of classifications because someone gave you a data set that you have to classify now, not just like regular use. You can just take your model, put it in another instance, make it fast and expensive, or put 5 of them and just classify everything in like 30 minutes and be done with it, and then turn the instance off. It's very nice, this on-demand classification. And we also have our models running on relatively smaller instances. You can even automate the spinning of new instances, but we haven't done that because we haven't needed it yet.
Okay. All right, good. In any of these areas, for people listening that want to get involved in something that is extremely mission driven, I can't promise we're going to have any sort of impact like Social Dilemma. All right. So don't have any expectations, but are you looking for people in these areas at the moment or in the foreseeable future?
We are going to be looking. So we are going to be looking relatively soon, like maybe in a couple of months, a month and a half, when we finish some paperwork. And then, so if you guys are interested, especially if you're interested in Vaccinate, which is our main focus right now with the resources that we have, do get in touch. The email is Juan, Juan, at astroscreen.com, or Juan at Vaccinate. That's Vaccinate with an X.ai. And then we'll find something. If you're super good, we'll find something for you.
Love it. Okay. So anyone who's got an interest in machine learning, classifiers, working with bright people, helping positively impact the people of social media, but mental health for sure, and so many other facets that all of this harmful and inflammatory behavior causes, then get in touch with our man Juan. You've obviously understood a little bit about tech stack and so forth. Lastly, as a leaving message, where do you think we'll see Astroscreen in the world of cleaning up social media? Let's just say next 15 months, end of next year. Where do you see yourselves?
I think we see a strong pivot towards Vaccinate because of the state of things. But I do also think that abuse and harassment, just hatred in social media, is going to continue being an important topic. And that as soon as people realize that if you use moderate, you can easily block a bunch of people that are horrible, this is going to take off. It's going to be difficult for us to navigate. We want to do both of these things. But limited resources and attention and everything. We'll have to focus on one of them eventually. But as of right now, moderate works and Vaccinate works. We do have the classifiers. We do have the tech stack. You can consume them. You can try it at vaccinate.ai. You can try our classifier with like a regular text. And you can try moderate at moderateapp.com for free for now.
Well, all of these links are going to be in the comments section below. So Everyone check them out. Email addresses, links. Juan, I want to say big thanks. Interesting journey that yourself, Ali, others have got going on. Hopefully you've caught the world at the right time where everyone seems to have finally woken up about this sort of stuff. And good luck. I wish you guys all the best of luck.
Thank you. Thank you very much. It's been an absolute pleasure. And on behalf of the three founders, Ali, Mark, and myself, we'd be happy to talk to you guys if you guys have questions or if you guys just want to get in touch.
Good. Okay. From everyone at Engineers, it's always peace, love. Come and share, like, subscribe, comment on all of this stuff, and make sure you get in touch with the guys below or follow them. Check out what they're doing. Apply if you're interested. Apply if you're curious. And we're going to see you all soon with some more episodes. Thanks, Juan.
Thank you very much, Elliot. It's been a pleasure.
Hey guys, thanks for watching this episode. Massively appreciate you listening and checking in with us. If you want to find out more about us and what we're doing, please check us out on social media. What we're trying to do at Engineers is build a community to drive knowledge sharing and experiences. On Twitter, we can be found at Engineers.io. It's no underscore. We've also got a website, which is engineers.io. These links will all be posted in the description. Any feedback and comments are massively appreciated. We're always looking to improve on where we can. Thanks, guys.